apologize. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to prepare as much as usual. Also, I didn't do it with a chavrusa today, so try the best, but not as well prepared. Let's get it on. So on the Yud I just thought maybe I should go over a little bit just outside yesterday's Gemara because I sort of ran through it. The Mishnah had a Pesha Asa, which is going to be very interesting. That the rest of the parak more or less is going to be Dine Pesha Asa. We're going to go away from Kesuvos for the rest of the parak mostly. Once it says Rabbi Yeshua's more, back in the parak before, there said the cases where Machlokas of Gamliel Rabbi Yeshua, if the woman is believed to say that she's in a better status than the husband is choshed her, either when she was nivala, if she was nivala, it's all those different things. So Rabbi Yeshua said he doesn't believe her. But here in this parak, he says that if it's a pesha asa who a pesha hit there, if there was a situation, just to maybe move the table out a little bit, if there's a situation where the person himself is the one who brought all the information to us, and without him we wouldn't know anything. That's called, like the Mishnah said before, we're living off of his word. So that's the concept called pesha asa who a pesha hit there. We call that sometimes a migo. I could have not said anything, or I could have said a better taina. So that was how the parak came in, and now we're going into a different halachas that have this concept called pesha asa a pesha hit. They're not dafka by Kesuvos dafka. So what the Mishnah said a case about somebody says that this field belonged to your father. I agree that it belonged to your father, but I bought it from him. So the Mishnah says that if the only source of information that we have that it was the father's in the first place is because he came, so pesha asa a pesha hit. He didn't have to say anything. He could have been quiet and no one would have been over against him. So now that he says that it was part of your father's, and now I got it back, I bought it from him, so he's believed. And it's a strange case that the Mishnah says about your father. Why not say a direct case that it was yours and I bought it from you? That's the simple question that people would ask when they see the Mishnah. So the Gemara's answer goes a little bit into the dinam of chazaka. Like they say, the Kesuvos is like a shas katan that has halachas about all areas of halachas. Here it talks about chazaka. Just a little akdama about chazaka, that when a person buys the field, so he's supposed to hold on to his deed, the deed of sale, that he should be able to prove that it's his. But the person can hold on to it indefinitely, and eventually he loses it. And if you come after 25 years and say it's my field, and I'm bringing proof that it was my field once upon a time, he says, "No, good morning. I've been here already so many years. You should have said something." And that's the halacha called chazaka, that if a person is in a field for 3 years and there was no complaint, nobody filed any complaint against him, so it's assumed that the owner wouldn't have been quiet. He would have made a macha. Those are the words called macha for the one who is the original owner. He should have protested if somebody's squatting in his property. And if he's quiet for 3 years, then another person comes and says, "I bought it from you. That's why you've been quiet." So he's believed. And that's what the Gemara talks about in the case where he says that it was yours, and I bought it from you. So then, even if there would be Edim, not only pesha asa, not only because he brought in the information, but even if there'd be Edim that we have information that once upon a time it belonged to Reuven. But if Shimon comes and says that I've been here 3 years, I've been here for 3 years, and you didn't protest, that would be still a legal taina that he would win to say that I bought it from you and you were quiet for 3 years. That's my proof. And if he doesn't have 3 years of chazaka, then it'll be pasha. Of course, it's not believed. He says that if we have evidence that it was Reuven's, and Shimon comes and says it's mine, that doesn't mean anything. So that's why the Mishnah wouldn't have said that case. But we have to explain what is the chiddush of the case where it was your father's. There is a chiddush. But the same thing should be. What do you mean? If you have Aiden that it was your father's, is any chiddush that he's not believed if he doesn't have a chazaka? And if he does have a chazaka, so of course he's believed. That the Gemara says we do find the chiddush because the chazaka sometimes is a weak chazaka. Means if part of the chazaka was in the lifetime of the father, and then the rest of the chazaka was in the lifetime of the son, that means that the father died and he didn't have it 3 years in this father's presence. So then the chazaka is not a good chazaka. That's the chiddush that that's the chiddush that the Mishnah wants to tell you that's not a chazaka. And why is that? Because the son, he doesn't know the business of the father, and therefore, especially when he's a katan, here the Gemara talks about that he was a katan first. He was a minor, and therefore he doesn't know his father's business. And then when somebody was there, he doesn't know to complain against him. And even if afterwards he 13, 14, 15, he's already of age, and he had 3 years that that he didn't say anything, that's because he came in when he was a katan and he didn't know his father's business. So therefore, that kind of chazaka doesn't prove anything. But that's a chiddush. That would be a chiddush. So the reason why the Mishnah says the case of the father is that it tells us a chiddush that the chazaka, that the newcomer, the one who's occupying it now, that it's not a good chazaka. The Gemara at the end just spoke about. I can tell you such a case also by the same person himself. Not what we said that this only applies to the chiddush of the father, not the one if it would have been you, that it was your field and I bought it from you. They wouldn't have the chiddush. And the Gemara says I could make a scenario that there'd be such a chiddush also if part of the time it was in the presence of the original owner. It means that the original owner was in the vicinity and he the squatter, so to speak, the newcomer, he's been in the field part of the time when the person was there, when the original owner was in the vicinity, and then he was not. He had to run away for some reason. He had to skip town. So you could talk about the same chiddush. That is it a chazaka if it wasn't all in his presence? The case of the father dying means it's not in his presence because he died. Talk about the same case that this was the person I bought it from. I say that I bought it from. That part of the time he was here, part of the time he wasn't here. Here the Gemara goes into a subject called machash lo b'fanav. Is it a good chazaka if you make when you made a chazaka not in the presence of the original owner? He wasn't around. So there goes back to what kind of macha. Would it be a good macha? It means the whole diyun, if the chazaka is a good chazaka, is if the protest would have been a good protest, a legal protest. If the protest of the original owner would have been legal, so then he should have made a macha. And if he didn't, so then the chazaka is a good chazaka. But if the macha wouldn't be a valid macha anyway, and the one who's making a chazaka would be able to knock down that macha, there's no reason to make a macha. More goes into, is it worthwhile, is it valid macha to make a protest from far away? And it comes out that depends if there's communication between the two places. The place where the field is, the chazaka is the field is in a certain vicinity, and the original owner is in a different place. But there's no communication. There's no travel. There's no shayaros masuyas. There's no travel between the two. Like if here it talks about shas chayrim. There would be countries that they don't allow travel between the two places. So then the original owner says I had no purpose in making a macha because he'd be able to say I didn't hear about it anyway. So therefore the macha is not a macha. If the macha is if the absence of macha doesn't mean anything, then the chazaka is not a good chazaka. So that the Gemara goes into this, that would be the case if he ran away because he was running away for his life, the government was after him, so then he couldn't make a macha, they'd find out where he is. So then it's pashut that it's not considered a chazaka if the macha, if the original owner could not have made a macha. As far as if it would be only for money and he ran away, but it's only a question of he can't come here, but he could have made a macha from where he is. So then the Gemara says, macha shelo b'fanav is a macha only if it would have been in a place where there's no communication between the two places. So then it wouldn't have been, and also then there wouldn't have been a good macha. Then it would not have been a good chazaka. So that's just wanted to go over a couple of minutes yesterday. So I thought I said it too fast yesterday, but we're on to the top of Yud Chesem and Aleph. And the Gemara, it's going to continue to ask other simpler cases that Rabbi Yeshua could have said. It means Rabbi Yeshua is just coming to say Pesha Asa or Pesha Hitir. And the case of the Mishnah was that he said that this field was your father's, but I bought it from him, and that's a good Pesha Asa. And I think I was going to ask the other cases that the Mishnah could have said that the Chayah was simpler. So on top of Yud Chesem and Aleph, the top line, the listening. Why does it say simple Pesha Asa? That the Yeshua should have said that someone who says, I borrowed from you $100 and I paid you. Means there's no aid that he borrowed. And he says, I agree, I'm owed, I admit that I borrowed from you, but I paid you back also. So I don't owe you any money. Without his information, without his admittance, we wouldn't have known anything. And now that he admitted that he owes, but he also says, but I paid you back also, I also don't owe you anything. That's what Pesha Asa, who Pesha Hitir. He's the one who brought us the information that he borrowed money in the first place, but he also tells us that he paid back, so he believed. Why doesn't Rabbi Yeshua say that a simple case? The more answer is because the sefer wouldn't have made sense. What does it say in the sefer? If we do have information, we know for a fact that he borrowed money, then it would say he's not believed to say I paid back. That's not so simple. He is believed. Even if there are aid that he borrowed, he's believed to say that I paid back. According to the structure of the Mishnah says that if it's not a Pesha, sorry, he's not believed. And it would have said, according to this case, it would have had to continue that if there were aid that he borrowed from him, means we know on our own that he borrowed. We don't need his admittance. We know that he borrowed. We have Adam that he borrowed money. And if he would say I paid back, he wouldn't be believed. But that's not true. He would be believed. If somebody lent money, even with Adam, even if he has Adam that he lent the money, but he doesn't have to pay him back with Adam. He can pay him back without Adam also. And therefore, even if there are Adam that say that we testify that Ruvain lent money to Shimon, Shimon can say, yes, it's true, and there are Adam and that they're Adam, but I paid him back. So we ask him, where are the Adam that you paid back? I don't need Adam to pay back. I could pay back without Adam, and he'd be believed. Yeah, so therefore, the Mishnah couldn't have said this case of a Pesh Asa because the reason why I believe is not because of Pesh Asa. Even, and that's why he paskin that if somebody only has testimony of witnesses that there was a halva, the lova is still believed to say that I paid back. If it means all this still without a shtar. Of course, somebody has a contract that says that there was a loan. Surely he has to get the shtar back and tear it up, or he has to get a receipt. But here there was no contract. There only was a milval peh. It was only a how would you call it? A verbal loan. And there are Adam also. There are even Adam that there's the Adam that there was a loan, but that doesn't stop the lova to be able to complain. But I paid back afterwards, and I don't have to have Adam for that. So that's why the Mishnah couldn't say this case, because the end of the Mishnah wouldn't be true, and it's not because of Pesh Asa. Even if there will be Adam that he lent him the money, the lova still will be believed to say I paid back. And the Mishnah was not a kasha. There's still another case that the Mishnah could have said, a simpler case of Pesh Asa, and that would be, for listening, let us say this the following case. This will be a Pesh Asa. Somebody says that I owed your father $100. The word literally, means that your father has $100 by me, which means that he lent me money, I owe him $100, but I paid back half. We're going to talk about a kol for a kol. Means a kol for a kol. This is the sugya called moda b'miktsas. Moda b'miktsas means that as a partial admittance. Here he says it's true that I owed 100, but I paid already 50, and I only owe 50. So we're going to see in the bottom of the page the whole sugya of moda b'miktsas. Let's say it's a little overview. There's a call the kol for a kol, and there's called a moda b'miktsas. Kol for a kol means a complete denial. And someone says that you owe me $100. He said that don't owe you anything. So he's believed. The one who says that he's believed to say it's not true. But there's a sugi called moda b'miktsas, that somebody made a partial admittance, and then there's more suspicion. That's interesting. That a moda b'miktsas might be more chayiv or more suspicious than a person who's a kol for a kol. And the Gemara is going to say this far. There's all has to do with psychology over here. The Gemara is going to say psychology in the bottom of the page, that a person is very difficult for him to be a kol for a kol. It's very difficult for him to look in the face of the malva and say the whole thing is not true. And there's the bottom. Taisus here brings down a few pshatim. Rashi says because he did you a favor, he lent you money. Now you can look in his face and say the whole thing is not true. Taisus has a kasha on that. He says it's more that even if he didn't do you a favor, that's the point that to deny everything, that's a difficult person to do. Even if he'd like to be a liar, it's not so easy. And Taisus ends off at the point that especially if he knows that you're lying, if you're talking to somebody who knows the truth, it's difficult to deny in his face and to be a kol for a kol. So the Gemara is going to base a lot of the halacha on that psychology, that a person can't be a kol for a kol. It's difficult. A regular person, not talking. There might be some people that are professional liars. They have no problem. They can look you straight in the face. But but the Jews, they don't have the ability so much. It's difficult to be a chazaka. Sometimes there is against the chazaka. Not everybody fits into the chazaka. But there's a chazaka. End of the maze. A person can't have such a audacity. Can't be such a mechutzif to deny everything. So there's a svara that Chazal use. That if he's a kol for a kol, there's more reason to believe him. The fact that he's able to deny in his face and say, I don't owe you anything, that's a reason to believe him. But if he's a moda b'miktsas, there's more suspicion that he's lying. Why is that? The Gemara is going to say on the bottom of the page that he can't lie because he can't be a kol for a kol. But he can't do it. He doesn't have the koach of the audacity, the chutzpah, to be able to say that I don't owe you anything. But he doesn't have money right now, and he'd like to stall. So he does justify himself by giving a partial payment now. He'll give him some money now, and then later on we'll get the money. He doesn't tend to pay, but right now he wants to deny part of the payment. He doesn't have enough money to pay back the whole thing, so maybe he's going to be moda b'miktsas. So that already gives him courage that he justifies himself. I am giving him some money. I'll get the rest of the money later, and I'll pay him eventually. So over there, we're more scared that he's lying. A kol for a kol, we're not so scared that he's lying because it's very difficult to lie. But so such a complete drastic lie. But the motive of mikzas, we're suspicious that could be that he is lying, and it's easier for him to lie. He justifies himself because he's giving some money now, and he has intention even to pay back the rest later when he has more money. But right now he just wants to push off the malva, so he says, "I only owe you half." So because of that, there's a din called the shvua. There's a shvua motive mikzas. We don't make him pay, but we make him swear. If that's truth, then swear, and that he's not going to swear falsely. So that's the svara by motive mikzas that were more machmir on him than a kofar akol. The kofar akol could be that we believe him, he doesn't have to pay anything, doesn't have to swear either. But by motive mikzas, we make him swear because B'choshev maybe is lying. So this Gemara is going to be talking about the whole. We'll see it on the page that there's a issue of this chazaka that a person can't be such a mechutzef, he can't have the audacity to be kofar akol. Is that only in the face of the one who lent him the money, or even to the son? Means you can say that to the person himself, the mal, but that's where there's a chazaka that he can't lie, and he might have this whole calculation. I can't lie to his face, but I'll be motive and mixas, and therefore we'll say make a shvur because we want to clarify the truth over here. But is it also true by the son? Is it hard for him to lie to the son and say that I don't owe anything? What's going to be the repercussions of this chazaka? If it's also difficult for him to lie to the son, so we have the same chash. Maybe he really would like to lie, but he can't. So he's doing the motive mixas in order to justify himself, and therefore he needs to shvur for motive mixas to the son also. But if the son person, wouldn't have difficulty to lie if he'd want to, that he have the ability to lie to the son's face and say, I don't owe you anything, I don't owe your father anything. If that would be so then there wouldn't be a reason to make a shvuas motive mixas, because it's not the case. It isn't that he would like to lie, but he can't, so he's doing a justification by doing motive mixas. If he wanted to lie, he could have lied. So that's what the Gemara is going to talk about, this issue about the chutzpah that is to the son of the person that lent you the money. So that's the Hakdama to the Gemara. So, or maybe that's the whole Gemara. So the Gemara says, why doesn't it say a case that I owed your father 100 and I paid him half, and he's Neman? Why would he be Neman? Because the motive of Miktas. I'm sorry, because Pesha Asa. Since he's the one who he's the one who brought the information to us, and he told us himself, even without him, he wouldn't have known that he's owed 100 in the first place. But he said, I paid back half. So we still didn't touch on to this issue that I spoke about, that a motive mixas is a problem. Here it says that he should be. Here it says here that he is Neman. The Mishnah would have said the Gemara is suggesting he should be Neman. We'll see right away if that's true. In a regular case of a motive mixas, we say that he's not Neman. So the Gemara says the reason why I wouldn't be able to say this. What? A motive mixas to the person himself. Here we're talking about that it's not to himself, it's to the son of the person that to the son. That's going to be the issue. That's going to be the issue. Here the Gemara says that he should be Neman if he is the one who brought the information to us and said that I owed your father $100, but I paid him back half. He should be Neman because Pesha Asa. And the Gemara says the reason why I can't say that is because it's not so simple. It's not going to be true. In other words, it's not going to be true. I'll leave it the man. According to which man the Yomar, you want the Mishnah to say that? The Rabbanan, Ha'amri Meishav Aveda Habi. The Rabbi Laz Ben Yaakov, Ha'amri Shvur Boy. No one's going to say that he. Are we talking about with Adam over here? We're going in the Adam. The end of the Mishnah would have said means again. The Gemara is pointing out the end of the Mishnah. The end of the Mishnah says that if there are Adam that there was a loan to the father $100, so then is the nema to say I paid you back half or not? Trust means half. So that means I paid you back a slice or half. So if this would have been the Mishnah would have said this, then the Mishnah would have ended off. You have to say same as the Gemara said before. Here the Gemara doesn't say those words, but that's what is going on. There's stories like that that's going on the Sefer. If it would have said this would have been the case that I owed your father 100 and I paid him 50. So if it's a Pesha, so you believe. But if the Mishnah continues, but if there would be Adam that there was a loan to the father, then he wouldn't be believed. That's what the Mishnah would have said. That's clear so far. That if this would have been the case, then you have to continue the Mishnah. But if there were Adam that he owed the father 100, then he's not believed. And that the Gemara says it's not true. That the Mishnah couldn't have said. This is the Gemara's answer that the Sefer of the Mishnah wouldn't be true, because the two choices we're going to find is either he's pater, Meishav Aveda is going to mean that he's pater, and even if there are Adam that there was a loan to the father, if he said even if there are Adam that there was a loan to the father 100, he still will believe to say that I paid back half. And it wouldn't be a problem of a motive mitzvah. And according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, he also wouldn't be chayiv to pay. He'd have to only would need a shvua. But the Mishnah wouldn't have made sense to say that he'd be chayiv. The Mishnah wants to say a case that without a pesha, with the pesha asar he's pater, and with the pesha asar he's chayiv. Oh, I'm sorry. With the pesha asar he's pater, without a pesha asar he's chayiv. And it could pesha asar means the migu. We said pesha asar who pesha hit him. We had it a couple of times already. The mouth that made it asar is the mouth that made it mutter, means we're only living off of his mouth, off of his admittance. So since he's the one who brought the information to us, so he's believed to say whatever he wants. We're not going to make him more chayiv because he admitted it. He didn't have to admit it. So in the Mishnah says that he'd be believed in this case because he has a pesha asar, because he's the one who brought the information that there was a loan in the first place. I owed your father 100. So that's why he's believed to say, but I paid him back half. But the Mishnah would have continued. The structure of the Mishnah would have said, but if there were edim that there was a loan to the father, then he would not be believed because he has no pesha asar. He's not the one who brought the information to us. The edim said that he owes the father 100. So then he wouldn't be believed. And he'd have to pay. But the Gemara says that wouldn't be true because the Liba Daman, the Rabbanan say that even in the case if there are edim that there was a loan, still he'd be able to say, I paid back 50, and I only owe you 50, and he doesn't have to. He's not chayiv to pay the whole thing. He's believed on what he said. And even if there'd be edim, that's called Meishav Aved. We'll come back to that in a second. Meishav Aved means that he's returning a lost object. And according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, he also wouldn't be chayiv to pay. He does have to be chayiv shvua. He wouldn't have to pay. That's why the Mishnah doesn't say it. It doesn't say this case. The rest of the Gemara is just going to be explaining the reason of these two shittas about Meishav Aved or shvua. But that's the answer to the question already. We finished the Gemara, so to speak, that the reason why he can't say it because it wouldn't be true that if there would be edim that there was a loan to the father, that the father lent him 100, that he would be chayiv if he says on his own, I paid back half. So what does all these words mean? Meishav Aved. Meishav Aved means that let's say someone comes back and he says, I found your wallet and here it is. He opens it up, he sees $50. So $50, there was $100 over here. You stole $50. So motive mixas, you have that. So over there, it's called Meishav Aved. That means if I was a liar, I didn't have to turn the wallet at all. So you can't make me make a shvua. I'm surely believe.
That's illegal.
That's called Meishav Aved. I'm returning you. I'm returning your lost thing. So you're gonna tell me that I didn't have to do it. The whole thing I'm doing is a favor for you. Not a favor. It's a mitzvah, it's a chiyuv. But it means that you can't accuse me. You can't accuse me of having taken half because I didn't have to give anything. And the Rabbanan say that this case is also considered a Meishav Aved, which the Gemara is going to explain that if I wanted to, I could have been kol for a kol. Means even if there are edim, what did we say a second ago? Even if there are edim, we had the Gemara before that a kol for a kol. So if this man that edim come and say that you owe the father $100, could he have said yes, but I paid back the whole thing? I'm asking if he would have said I paid back the whole thing, would he have been believed? Yes. So he says, like, what do you want from my life? I'm telling you that I owe 50. I could have said, I don't owe anything. I also have a pesha asar. Even if there are edim that say that there was a loan, but he still could have gotten out of it by saying, I paid back, and he would have been believed. So if now that I'm saying that I owe 50, you can't make me pay the whole thing. I don't need a shvur either. And that's what the Rabbanan say, that he has a migo over here also. It's called Meishav Aved even in this case, because he could have looked the son in the eye and said, I paid back everything. To the father, we say that he couldn't have. That's why, even though a kol for a kol, even though somebody denies everything, he is believed. If he says, I paid back everything, he's believed. But if he says, I paid back 50, he's not believed, because as far as we said that a motive mitzvahs is more suspicious. And he can't say, if I wanted to, I could have denied everything, because you couldn't have. You couldn't have looked the father in the eye and said, I paid you everything. But now the son, the Gemara is going to explain that he
doesn't the kol for kol have to take shul midu?
It could be, yes. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. But without that point of shvur, I think it's called. Without that, maybe that's a good question. I don't know more. So since he'd be able to be a kol for a kol, if he'd be, that's what the Gemara is going to say. It depends on. This is the link. This is the pivot. Whatever. This is what everything depends on. Would he have been able to say, I don't owe you anything? If he would have been able to, then he's put there also. If he says, I only owe you half, because he didn't have to say anything. Say thank you that I'm giving you, because I could have lied more. But if he couldn't have said to the son that I don't owe anything. That's also too hard for him to be a chutzpah like that, to say to the son of the Malva, I don't owe you anything. So then he doesn't have a proof that he's saying the truth, and he would have to have a shvuah. But in any case, the Gemara is answering that the Mishnah couldn't have ended off that if there were edim, that there was mana that he owed the father 100, it couldn't have ended off that he'd have to pay the whole thing, because it wouldn't be true. The two choices would have been either he's pater from what he doesn't admit. If he says I paid 50, he only has to pay 50. And according to the other choice would have been he has to make a shvuah on the 50 that he's not paying. But there wouldn't have been any. No one would hold that he has to pay the whole thing. And that's why the Mishnah doesn't say that case, because it wouldn't have been true. And the rest of the Gemara is just going to explain these two tzadim in the case where he says, Manala vicha b'yadi, and I paid back half. Is he pater? Does he have to make a shvuah? The Tanya. Sometimes a person could swear, is chayiv to swear because of his claim that he said. Usually it's because somebody else claims, that's why he has to make a shvuah to defend himself. Sometimes a person has to make a shvuah just because he claimed himself. Okay, so what will be the case? If somebody admits that I owe your father $100, I owed your father $100, but he also says that I paid half, he has to make a shvuah on the half that he says that he paid. This is what Jabbalesa says. This is a case, you have a case of a person making a shvuah because of his own claim. Not that someone claims against him, he has his own claim. That he doesn't have to swear because he's like a person who's returning a lost object and he didn't have to return it at all. So here too, he didn't have to say anything, and therefore he's pater from a shvuah, and he just pays what he admits. He doesn't have to pay what he doesn't admit, and he doesn't have to swear on it either. But the one has to figure out, doesn't make sense. But doesn't hold that if a person returns a lost object and the guy says, you took away half of it, he doesn't have to swear. So this is the same thing. So these words are not going to will be explained in 2 lines, but the Gemara just goes. It had the quote was not clear yet. It says, Rab said the case is that the katan is claiming against him. Means the katan means the son, means the father died. That I owed your father, and the son who's a katan says, I know about it. The katan, the minor, he comes and says that I know that you owed my father $100, and he's coming with a claim. And that's why he has to make a shvuah. And that's why it's not such a Meshav Aveda, because the son is claiming against him. It's not like he could have been quiet. Meshav Aveda means that someone found a lost a wallet. No one knows that he found it. So he could have been quiet. He could have gone home and enjoyed it. So if he comes and he returns it, you can't have any claim against him because surely he's saying the truth. But here, it's not such a Meshav Aveda because the katan, the minor, is claiming, you owe my father $100. But the Gemara says that doesn't make sense because there's no such thing of a katan claiming. You don't have to swear because the chereshot of a katan is making a claim against you. So if the son is a minor, so that wouldn't be chayiv shvuah. But the Gemara says he didn't mean that. He didn't mean a katan minor. My katan gadol. Yeah, of course he's an adult. He's a mitzvah already. My katan the legabi miladav of katan. He doesn't mean to say the son. The katan means the son of the deceased father. Not that he's a minor. He's the son. We call the katan because usually the children don't know what's doing in the father's business. So no matter how old he is, he's still considered a katan as far as. But it means the Yorish. The Yorish is saying that I know that you owe my father $100. So that's when the Belaz of Yaakov says you have to swear. Because there is a claim against him. There's somebody that's claiming against him. Yachi, Tanas Natsmo, Tanas Achermi. The Brisa says that this is a case where Belaz of Yaakov says you make a shvuah because of your own claim. But now you explain, he's saying it's not the case of his own claim. There's someone coming against him. The Malva's son is saying that I know that you owed my father $100. It's Tanas Acherim. The Gemara says, Tanas Acherim v'dos atzmo. Yes, it's a case where someone is coming against him, but he is admitting, he admits also that he borrowed it, and he's saying, but I paid back half. That's the case of Elizabeth Yaakov says you have to pay. The Gemara says that's always the case, not a fancy case. Kulu Tanas Acherim v'dos atzmo. Every time that you have a hodah, it's always someone's coming to claim, and you admit part. So what's special about this case? But the Rabbi now the Gemara gets to the meat of the sugya, which we made to be the overview. This is now going to be explaining the din of Modeh b'Miktsas, the regular case of a person who's talking to the Malva himself, and a partial admittance, and we said that that's more chamor, more suspicious than a person who's a kofar bakol. And then the Gemara is going to finish off to say why by the father's son, by the son of the Malva, it might be different. So first it introduces the din of Modeh b'Miktsas. They're arguing in the din of Rabbah. What does Rabbah say? Rabbah comes to explain the regular din of Modeh b'Miktsas. Why does the Torah say that if somebody is a partial admittance to the claim against him, that he has to swear on whatever he's denying? Because there's a chazaka that human nature, a person is not able to be so chutzpah against the one who lent him money. He owes somebody money, and he can't look at his. Yeah, it's too hard to look at him and in his face to say the whole thing is not true. You're jumping, but that's what the Gemara is going to say soon.
That's what he said.
Right. That's what I say. First, it says such a chazaka, human nature. A person cannot be such a chutzpah to be a chutzpah against his creditor. Really, if he'd be able to, he'd want to deny everything, but he can't. So he wants to admit because his consciousness doesn't let him lie. So he'd like to deny everything, but he can't because he can't have such an audacity to his balchov. So what's he want to do? Okay, so because of his human consciousness, he wants to admit, I owe you. The uvakula boy the lodi. So his consciousness wants him to admit, I owe you money, I owe you $100. But he can't because he doesn't have money right now. So he's justifying himself that I'm going to pay him, but right now I have to get out of it, so I'm going to deny half, and I'll give him some money. Like, I'm not such a bad guy. I'm giving him part of it, and the rest of it, I'll get to him eventually. The reason why he doesn't admit is because he wants to slip away. The word l'shtamet, like slip away, means to get out of it. Till I get money. Right now I don't have money. I'll get money and then I'll pay him. But right now, I'll give him some money. Like, I'm not going to look at him in the face and say, I don't owe you anything. I'll admit to something, and that calms my consciousness, and he'll get the money eventually. And that's the human nature that a person might be able to do that. Because of that, the Torah says, make a shvur. Means a kol for a kol, regularly, a person who denies everything, the Torah says doesn't need a shvur, because we could believe him, because the Chazaka says he can't do such a lie. But a modem mixas lie, he could do. And therefore, the Torah says, he's lying. Therefore, the Torah says, throw on to him the shvur, make him make a shvur, because then he's going to admit whatever he really owes. That's the svar of modem mixas. So now we take it on to the case of the son. Till now was the person himself, the malva himself. That's why everybody holds that a modem mixas has to make a shvur. But now the question is the son of the malva. No, in Amayas. But Yaakov says that the human nature is no difference, the person himself or the son of the malva. Also, he's not able to have the chutzpah. And the whole svara applies by the son also. That if he's modem mixas to the son, he also has to make a shvur, because the whole svara again, that he'd like to deny, but he can't deny. So he wants to do more than mixas in order to justify himself and to calm his consciousness, and he'll pay him back. So he also needs a shvur. And that's what Yaakov says. We'll say right away, the Chacham are going to say, that's why he's not considered Meshav Aveda, because Meshav Aveda could have stayed home and he found the wallet and it's quiet. But here, he's going to have to say to the son of the Malva that the whole thing is not true. He couldn't have done that. So therefore, there is a suspicion and he has to make a shvur. Rabbanan Sabri Bohu the Ena Meyes, no Meyes. But Rabbanan, the Chacham Yaakov says that this chazak is only against the person himself. He wouldn't be able to be such a muchatzif to say it. But to the son, he could do it. Human nature would allow a person to, if he wants to lie, that he could lie and say to the son, I don't owe your father anything. And since he didn't, with lo hey is meishav aveidavi. Since he didn't say that chutzpah, we could have done the chutzpah. He had the ability to do it. Since he didn't do it, that shows that he's honest and he's just returning. He's the same level of somebody who's returning a lost object, that if he didn't want to, he didn't have to return it, and therefore he's never, and he's putter from his shvur also. That all Gemara was to explain the machlokes of Elazar ben Yaakov and the Rabbanan about this case of man al bicha b'yadi, and the reason why the Mishnah couldn't have said that case is because the sefer wouldn't have made sense. The sefer would have said that if there were eidim about man al bicha, that there was $100 loan, so would he be neman to say that I paid back half? Machlokes, the Rabbanan would say that he would be neman on the other half, and even if there are eidim, the Mishnah couldn't have ended off if there are eidim he's fine, because he's not. But Rabbanan is putter, even if there are eidim. Because he could have said, it's true that I borrowed the money, but I paid back the whole thing. And he wouldn't have a problem having such a chutzpah to the son. To the son, he could have done it. So he's putter. And if Elazar ben Yaakov also has to make a shvur, but he doesn't have to pay. And the Mishnah wants to give a case where if there are eidim, then he's chayiv to pay. That's the reason why he doesn't say those other cases. And it says the case of the sale of a field, that this field was once upon a time your father's, and I bought it from him. That's the case of a pesha asa, that if there's no information from him outside, he's the pesha asa, so then he's believed to say it. But if there would be edim that the field once upon a time belonged to the father, so then he wouldn't be believed because he has no pesha asa. If that's good, we go on to the next Mishnah, which now we're out of Tshuvas. We're on the cruise of pesha asa. We're on the pesha asa cruise. We're going into other cases. Many Mishnahs, one after another, are going to talk about pesha asa. We're not in the sugi of Kesuvos now, we're going into pesha asa. Here's a case. Ha'edim sha'amru ksav yadeinu hu zeh, aval anusam hayinu, ktanim hayinu, psulei d'sayinu. Edim, there's a contract that has signatures, and we have to verify the signatures. Means we don't know that whose signature. We see the signature, it says a name, Yosef and Shimon, but we don't know who if it's the right signature. Is it the signature? So the Edim themselves come, the one who's assigned, they say this is our signature. They confirm the signature. They verify the signature. Is there such a thing nowadays? Verification of a there's such a thing in the bank. When you go to the bank, you open it, you have to make your signature, and then that's going to be compared. That's going to be the verification. Anytime you sign, they see your signature.
It's probably automatic, because you do, you have to sign everything.
Yeah, right,
on the
right.
computer.
Right, and everything is always comparing it to the first time that you sign. That's what they do now. It's very organized, systematic, computerized. But in the olden days, they didn't have all those systems. So you got a contract that has signatures of Adam. We don't know if we need a confirmation that this is the signature. So the Adam come and say, this is our signature. We signed on this contract. But you should know that when we signed on it, we were forced. They forced us to sign it. And or we were ketanim, or we were psulim, whatever the case would be, that even though it's true that it's our signature, but it's not, the contract is not valid because we were postulating at the time. So what's the question? What do they want to say? That the contract, that you cannot collect with the contract, even though the contract says something, whatever we would say, there was a loan, there was a sale, but they themselves are taking away, they want to take away the validity of their signature by saying, even though it was our signature, yes, we did sign, but we were forced into it, or we were postulated at the time. So that's the question of a pesha asa. Means without them, if they wouldn't have confirmed it, then the contract wouldn't have been worth anything because we can't confirm the signatures. We wouldn't have had a verification of the signatures. But they verify it, but they say, together with the verification, they say, but it's not worth anything because we were forced into it, or we were puzzled at the time. That's the case of a pesha asa, and that's what the Mishnah says. They're believed to invalidate the contract. But if there are edim about their signatures, but if there are witnesses who know that they signed on this contract, we don't need them. We have edim that say that they signed on the contract, or we have a comparison. We have other documents that they signed, and we can compare the signature and see that as means we can verify the signature without them. Then they're not believed to come and say now that we were forced into it, or we were ketanim, we were psulim at the time. They're not believed to go against the contract because they have no pesha asa. Another case of a pesha asa over here. Anybody wants the explanation? Please feel free. Whatever is good for everybody. So that's another case. That's another case of a pesha asa. The first case was the Mishnah before about that the field was your father's, but I bought it from him. And that's another case of pesha asa. This is our signature, but we were puzzled because we were forced into it, or we were done, whatever it might
So we
be.
believe that, I'm a little confused.
We're talking about the Edim were one that disqualified the contract. There's a contract that says
And we
that
believe
through, so it says that if they're the ones who, the only source of confirmation of the signature is they themselves,
it.
without them, the contract is not worth anything because we don't know that the signatures are true. But they come and say the signatures are true, but we were puzzled anyway. We were forced into it, or we were ketanim, psulim. So they, together with their confirmation, they're in the same breath, they're saying that the contract is not.
We weren't
right.
related.
So therefore, they believe then it's not a good contract. It's not a valid contract. But if we have that confirmation of their signatures without them, so then the contract is good, and we're not going to believe them against the contract. That's the Mishnah. It's going on the safe of the Mishnah that if we have verification of the signature from someplace else, and it says that they're not Neman, but he says it depends what they claim. They say Anusam. It means we were forced into it. We were forced into sign. There are two ways to force somebody. One is by gunpoint, whatever that they tell them, if you don't sign, we're going to kill you. That's called machus tefashas. They're forced into it by threat of their lives. And they say that they said they're going to kill us if we don't sign. The other case is a moment that they had some monetary pressure to sign. Either they said
They can take away the pension fund that they had for 20 years.
and that they shouldn't, halachically they shouldn't have signed. They shouldn't have signed because of machmas mammon. Does Rashi say machmas mammon? Does Rashi say in case of that's considered a Russia? Right? The Gemara is going to say soon that will be a Russia. If they signed falsely because of monetary issues, they're considered a Russia. If they did it because of threat of their lives, then they're tzaddikim. They were supposed to sign. Why should they? If they're going to get killed, then they're supposed to sign falsely. But if it's only a question of mammon, then they'd be rishon. So first thing I want to start off that even in the case where it says einam nemanim, that we have verification of the signatures from someplace else, still it says, and it says they're not believed to invalidate the contract. But if they say that we were forced because of threat of our lives, then they're believed to invalidate the contract, even if we have confirmation of the signatures. That's how Rabbi Rechama is first quoted as saying. That when do we say that they're not believed? Only if they say that we were forced because of monetary issues. But if they said we were forced because of the threat of our lives, so then they believe, even if we have confirmation of the signatures from someplace else. They don't have a Pesha Asar, but they still believe. And that Rav is,
Somebody else
we have,
gave validity to the original signature.
yeah, we have confirmation, we have verification of the signatures. Yes, and we know, yeah, and we don't need them to verify the signatures, we have verification already. But they come and say, but we were forced into it. Adam, in other words, Adam come on the contract that they signed on, but they say we were forced into it. So Rabbi Rechama said that they believe. If they were forced into it because of the nefashos, that they, under threat of gunpoint, they testified that we were forced into the signature. So he says that they believe. And Rabbi is going to say they don't believe. They're coming against the contract. The contract is a good contract that has confirmation, and now they're coming to testify against the contract. They're not believed. Amalei Rabbi, Kol Kimine, are they believed? Even the Eidim themselves, if they come back, they came to Bezdin and testify something. Let's say they would have come to Bezdin and testified they saw something. Then the next day they come and they say, no, it wasn't true what we said yesterday. The same Eidim, the Eidim that comes themselves, they admit. I don't know what happens nowadays in court, but the Eidim themselves that say we testified falsely, are they believed to retract?
It seems like they're not for real.
Well, the question is that they're not for real now, or they're not for real yesterday. Yesterday they testified, and today they come and they say that I testified.
They're not for real.
So which one do you accept? Which testify?
If it's one day, they're not for real. The whole thing.
Yeah, I know they're surely not for real, but the question is, are they not for real yesterday or they're not for real today? Yesterday they said a testimony. Today they want to retract their testimony.
Was the testimony a true testimony?
Which one is the true one? Here it says, once they testify, they can't retract. The first testimony, once it's, of course we interrogate them and everything, but once we accepted their testimony, it's registered, then they can't come back and change it. That's what it said. This is it. Here's the Gemara. Once they said, they can't say something else. So Rabbi says, it's not true. If the contract is verified, they can't come down and say that we were forced into it and it wasn't really a good signature. We did. Even if they're coming and said that we were forced by threat of our lives, they're not believed to go against the contract. You might think that this is only if they testified in Bezdin, but if they signed the contract, maybe they could retract it. No, it's not true. Says even in a contract, you can't retract. Anything that are signed in a contract is if they were already interrogated in Bezdin. It's like their testimony is confirmed. So it's like they went to Bezdin and they testify, so they can't retract anymore. Even if they're going to say that we were tzaddikim and we didn't do a waiver by signing, we were forced into it. But as far as we see the contract, it's a kosher contract, and to go against the contract is like two Eidim coming against two Eidim, or the Eidim themselves. It's even worse than that. That the two Eidim, once they said the testimony, they can't go against the testimony that they wrote in the contract. So he argues. Rabbi argues and Rabbi Rechama, and here it says that even Rabbi Rechama didn't mean that. He's misquoted. Look at my Reisha. Well, Rabbi Rechama says something. He was going about the ratio of the Mishnah, the case that they are believed. They do have a Pesha Asa. Means we don't have confirmation of the signatures only because they themselves came. Not that there's a Sav Yoda Yosef Magamacher. Not the case of the Sefer where we have authorization of the signatures without them. We don't. We need them to authorize the signatures. And the Mishnah says that they believe to say that we were anusim at the time. They come to Bezdin and say it's our signatures, but we were anusim. Now it says only if they come and say that we were forced to it by threat of our lives. This is our signature, and we were forced into it. They believe that it's not a good contract. If they say that it's our signature, but we had a ulterior motive because of money, that's why we signed falsely. But we're telling you it's a false signature, and they're doing it a pesha asa. As they say that it's our signature, and we need them to say it. Without them testifying that it's their signature, it's not worth anything to us. But even though we need them to testify that it's their signature, and that lahar have a pesha asa, but they say that it wasn't a good signature because we lied because they gave us money, whatever the case would be. So they're not believed to invalidate the contract. My time end of the Mason Masma Russia. A person can't testify against himself that he's a Russia, and that's what the kasha maybe has to be explained that the horror that they're namanas should be true. That if we were lying, if I'm lying, then I didn't have to come to Bezdin at all. So trust us that we're saying the truth, and we were Rishon. We were Rishon. But the Gemara says no, you can't testify about yourself that you're a Russia.
So they don't believe that the new age, the original age still stands.
And the contract is a good contract. Even though they say we don't have any confirmation, we need them for the confirmation. They confirm the star, but say that we lied when we signed it. They're not believed because they make themselves Rishon. And even though it's a pesha, so we could have done more theoretically, but I didn't prepare more, so we did a daf, not the whole hour. But Bez Hashem, we'll hope to continue. We'll stop here. I'll be back in about 15 minutes with Hilchos Shabbos. That's your call, everybody. Thank you.